Welcome to episode 375 of the DFO Rundown presented by Bet365. Download the app and use the promo code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N, to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Jason Greger. Alongside Frank Saravelli is the final week of the regular season. We got 4 nights left, and then the playoffs will begin on Saturday with a few games, and Sunday, and maybe even next Monday for some late starters in the playoffs. And Frank, let's start about who's not in the playoffs, as the New York Rangers, fourth team to go from President's Trophy to out of the playoffs. And, Calvin DeHaan, who quickly went on Twitter and kind of explained, hey, man, it's frustrating. I thought I could play more. I wasn't happy with how he's being treated. It just kind of puts a bow on a season that has gone awry for the Rangers.
Awry? I mean, this thing went off the rails in November.
Yeah.
12-7 start. Team that won the President's Trophy last year. Best record in the league. Decent enough start, firmly in playoff position. And then the next day, Chris Drury sends out a memo to the rest of the league advising that Captain Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider are available via trade. Since then, it's been insane how poor that team has played. And Peter Laviolette hinted at it over the weekend when he said, we had a year last year where just about everything went right. And I'm paraphrasing, he said, and not a lot went right this year. And that's the amazing part, is that, yeah, there was some significant roster turnover by the end of the season, but they also added a 100-point player in JT Miller along the way, and still never could get out of their own way.
Yeah.
I think significant changes are coming for the New York Rangers this offseason. I'd be very surprised if Peter Laviolette still has his job come April 25th, 10 days from now. And I believe they'll be searching for the next coach. I think some people have, at least on social media, I've seen some reaction from fans saying, hey, this is squarely on the general manager. You send out a memo like that, that's on you. Well, I don't think the general manager is going anywhere. And beyond that, I think they had made a decision internally that this team wasn't good enough to win as it was constituted. So changes are in order.
They were actually 12-4-1 in their first 17 games. So even better than 12-7, and then just hit the skids after that. And to me,
what are they since then?
Oh God. What's their record now? Yeah, they got one of the
12-4-1. That means that they've gone 25, 32 and 6.
Yeah.
25, 32 and 6. Sources say not good.
Yeah. You think? Yeah, not good at all. And when you look at, to me, the memo, and it just showed that dysfunction kind of reigned. And if it's funny, Frank, and how about this? This is the third consecutive season that the NHL will have 3 teams who had 100 points last year who don't make the playoffs this year. So that's a third year in a row. This year it was the Rangers who had 114, missed. The Bruins and the Canucks each had 109 last year. They're out. And, that's pretty big when you consider that's, and one year was actually 4. And from 22 to 23, there was 4 teams that went from 100 points plus to missing the playoffs the next year. So anybody who's making their prognostication next September or October, remember the 100-point curse now seems to be a 3-year trend in the National Hockey League, where you go from being really good to not even a contender. It's quite the turnaround for all 3 of those teams.
I say it every year, which is this week I'm auditing my 32 bold predictions, and I use it as an opportunity to make fun of myself. This was a god-awful year for predictions for everyone. I mean, did you see the Washington Capitals tweet over the weekend or last week when they won the division title? They said they basically screenshotted the predictions from ESPN and Sportsnet and said not one person on either media company picked the Caps to win the division. They screenshotted it and said, how about those predictions? I saw someone else do it. Another team did something similar It was the Winnipeg Jets. No one picked the Jets to win their division either. So it was a very difficult year in trying to predict this sport, which I think remains the least predictable sport of any of the major four. And you mentioned a stat, was it a couple weeks ago, that this is the first year that the Red Wings and Rangers haven't made the playoffs since when?
Red Wings and Bruins.
Red Wings and Bruins.
Yeah, together since 1967.
This
so
is
Leaf
the first
fans are
year.
like,
this is the first year
there's a chance.
Yes, this is the first year in the history of the league that the Penguins, Bruins, and Rangers have all missed. So this, obviously, since it's Penguins, it goes back to 67. But I mean, it's a crazy stat.
Yeah. Well, there's some big teams you expect to be in. Now, further to the Rangers, when we talked about their 25. So since their start, Frank, the Rangers are 29th place in the NHL at 25, 32, and 6. They got a .444 points percentage. Only the Predators, Blackhawks, and Sharks are worse over the last 63 games for the New York Rangers. So that's how bad they are deserving. This is not a team who just had some bad luck. They are completely deserving of missing the playoffs.
To me, honestly, what it does is it shows you the power of a great start. You have a great start to the year, 12-4-1. Look how long the Rangers hung in the race. The Rangers, by sheer accident, were still in it as of like 5 days ago. Not like authentically in it, but mathematically still in it. All they needed was 1-2 week solid run, and they would have been a playoff team. It shows you the difficulty of making up points in the NHL.
Yeah, especially in the 3-point league for sure. So that's a big one. Now, speaking of the Jets, they win the President's Trophy, and we'll see where the Jets go from here. They're obviously a very good team. They're waiting to see who they play. Minnesota, St. Louis. I guess there's still an outside chance. It could be the Calgary Flames, but they rested some guys last night against Edmonton, and the Jets are good. The other story is Gabriel.
Do you believe in the President's Trophy curse?
Not really. Well, I don't think so, because it's 1 out of 16. And if you actually look, they still have a better chance than other seeds to win. I think the only seed that's higher, it's actually one more, is the 4th seed.
It drives me absolutely batshit crazy anytime someone talks about a quote curse. That's the President's Trophy. Like, mathematically, in 38 years of the President's Trophy's existence, the team that's won the President's Trophy has gone on to win the Stanley Cup 8 times. 8 in 38 is a 21% shot. If you're telling me before the playoffs start that you have your ability to win the league in the regular season provides you a 21% likelihood to win the Stanley Cup, you're taking that every single time.
Oh, yeah. That's what I said. I don't believe in it at all. Like, I think you win the President's Trophy by 1 point some year. There's 5 or 6 teams within 2 points, and you're telling me that you're clearly better. Like, I think some people just look for something, but hey, Winnipeg, full marks for it. But as we all know, once the playoffs start, everything's kind of irrelevant now. Now it's matchups, right? Like, you won the President's Trophy by playing a different team basically every second day. Now you play the same team for 4 to 7 straight games. And as we've seen each year, look at Tampa Bay. They won 62 games out in the first round. Boston set the NHL record out in first round. Like, it means absolutely nothing once Saturday begins.
You have just as good a chance to lose in the first round as you do to win the Stanley Cup. 8 times the President's Trophy winner has lost in the first round.
There you go. So, yeah. I will say I think the Jets are going to win in the first round, regardless of who they play. So I'll say that. You're
really going out on a ledge on that one.
Yeah, well, hey, only, what is that? 8 times. They can get upset, but no, I'll take the Jets. I like that. The other, quickly, you look at some other news. Do you think Z Williams going to play at all for the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
You think in the playoffs?
Dude, do you know how good Zeev Buium is?
Yeah, but I know their coach loves his third pair, right? Like, that's the thing. So he's going to have to take away one of those veteran guys.
I know that they've defended pretty well. I'd be very, very surprised. He is going to immediately help this team.
Okay. What about Hudson and Edmonton?
No, I don't think Quinn Hudson's NHL ready. He also isn't eligible to play in the playoffs, but
right.
I don't think he's
because he wasn't on the reserve list, so he can. He is going to have a press conference where they're going to announce the signing in Edmonton today on Monday, and then I could see him playing Wednesday. I'm not sold he'll play tonight against LA though.
I think he's got a lot of work to do, and to be fair, he's done a lot of the work. He's one of those guys that I think has, think about the pressure of being the oldest brother of two really good NHL prospects, and he's kind of persevered. The undrafted guy that when I look at his game, I don't know that he's necessarily outstanding in any one area of the game. He's also maybe slightly undersized, but his hockey sense, work ethic is 10 out of 10. So he's a grinder and he's persevered, but I just think for Edmonton, it's a shot in the dark. It's a chance. Stan Bowman obviously knows the family. They're from Chicago. I think his sons interacted with the Hudsons and played in the same rinks, and obviously had a leg up in trying to land him with that opportunity. But it's going to be a decently long road for Quinn Hudson to be an NHL player.
Yeah, I think everybody should expect him to go to the American League. It's a hard league. And learn pro there, and then become maybe an NHLer down the road. Let's get to our East preview. We start today. We know some series are locked in for sure. Others, there's slight chance of change, not very much. Like you look at Toronto. Toronto all they need is 1 point in their final two games, and they are guaranteed that they're going to play Ottawa, or Tampa Bay not getting 1 point. So it looks like it's going to be Toronto, Ottawa. It's going to be Florida and Tampa Bay. New Jersey and Carolina have been locked in for a long time. And Montreal is on the verge here of clinching a spot. Columbus is still mathematically involved, but they're going to need a miracle to get in. So let's start with Tampa and Florida. And I just want to say this, Frank, as a reminder to the NHL. The easiest schedule change is that everybody in your division, you should play 4 times. Tampa and Florida only played each other 3 times this year. Ottawa and Toronto only played each other 3 times. Those are like big rivals. What the hell's going on? So,
what was the head-to-head?
Head-to-head, Ottawa 3-0 against Toronto, and Florida was 2-1 against Tampa Bay. Although Tampa Bay outscored them 7-6. Tampa Bay, the one game they won was 4-0. So the other games were low scoring and tight. So give me who you like, Tampa, Florida, and how that series breaks down.
It's a really difficult question to answer because we don't really have any clarity yet on the status of Matthew Tkachuk. We believe he's going to be ready, and I put ready in air quotes, for game 1. But is this Matthew Tkachuk testing it the way that he did in the championship game of 4 Nations and playing 8 minutes and not being able to cut it with the groin injury? I mean, this is a significant groin injury to the point where obviously he hasn't played since then.
Yeah.
That's a long time to miss. We're talking 2 months of action for a guy that obviously gave it his all. He's a game changer. He's a game breaker for a series. So for me to properly size this up, that's a really difficult thing to do, whether he's in or out. If he's in and he's normal Matthew Tkachuk, I like the Panthers in a long series. And if he's not, I think it tips the scale significantly, and I think I'd probably have to lean toward the Lightning in 6.
I look at this series, and I think Tampa Bay is quietly the team that no one's really talked about. When you consider what their point totals are, you consider the superstars. Like, look at Kucherov's going to win another, he's going to win the Art Ross again. And he just continues to put up points. Vasilevsky, after a few shorter off seasons where they didn't go deep, I think he's rested. The Ekblad suspension, Frank, you mentioned Tkachuk hasn't played in a long time. Ekblad will get in game 3, and he's been out for a long time. And so,
yeah, but he's been at least been able to skate and practice, though. That started last week.
But still, I just look at Ekblad, Montour, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and they've really only replaced those guys with Jones for games 1 and 2. And I think that might be the difference in the series, to be honest. So I'm going to take Tampa. I look at Tampa Bay. They're first in the NHL in goals. They're 5th in the NHL in goals against. They're really strong. Florida's good too. 7th in goals against, 13th in goals for, but I just like Tampa Bay. And I think the collective fatigue, you mentioned the injury to Tkachuk and, what's he going to be at? Both of these teams have represented the East the last 5 years in the Stanley Cup final, 3 years by Tampa, then 2 years by Florida. And I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I'll take them in 6.
Well, you said the reason why, or you said it's surprising that no one's talking about them. The reason why is because both of the last 2 years they lost in the first round.
Yeah, well, you're not going to go every year.
No, you're not. But I'm saying at some point when you have the same core of players, and yeah, we know Vasilevsky, weird year last year, not coming back till Thanksgiving. Yes, this year they bring back McDonough, slightly different view on defense, but for the most part, otherwise, and they lost Stamkos. They swapped him out for Gensel.
Yeah, I think that's being the right decision if you look at it.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, unquestionably it's been the right decision, but I'm saying by and large, this is the same roster that's lost the last 2 years. That's why no one's over the moon excited, because it's the same reason why a lot of people wouldn't pick Toronto to go on a deep run, is because it's mostly the same group that's shown no signs of improvement.
I think that would be a mistake. I look at Tampa Bay, man. They got 4 35 goal scorers. Cirelli's got 27 goals. Nick Paul's got 22. They got really good offense. I mentioned their defense with Vasilevsky.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying the reason why no one's talking about them is that.
Yeah, but there's lots of teams that haven't done anything either that everybody's talking about, right? So I think Tampa Bay is probably being the least talked about team who's a legit cup contender. That's what I'll say. I think they're a legit cup contender. They've got all the pieces you need. Mm-hmm. And I like their depth. Obviously, their coach, they know how to win. I think that's pretty captain obvious. So I like Tampa in that series. I think it's going to be a barn burner of a series. It might be the best first round series. But
it probably will be. So here's the other thing, though. Is there any chance that you're overlooking the Panthers? And I say that not because it's hard to overlook them. They've won the Stanley Cup, and gone to the finals 2 years in a row. But Tkachuk has missed 30 games. Barkov has missed 16. Ekblad has missed 26. They haven't had a real complete roster. Seth Jones only has 20 games as a Florida Panther. Brad Marchand will have 10.
Yeah. Sam Bennett's banged up right now.
Yeah, I mean, but then you look at their group and they've got 8 guys with at least 15 goals, which is kind of a big number. And they've got obviously a proven playoff performer in Bobrovsky in net.
Yeah.
Whose numbers in the regular season aren't great.
I really like Florida. I just think, honestly, for Florida, of all the 8 teams in the playoffs, this is the worst first round matchup for them. And not that, because I think just Tampa's good. And
you think this is worse than, well, in the East, but who gets more of a raw deal? The Florida Panthers getting Tampa or the Dallas Stars getting Colorado?
Well, you could word it either way. Yeah. Right. I look at Colorado getting Dallas. It's tough, but I honestly, when I look at stylistic matchups and experience and everything else, the loser of this series, Frank, I probably would have picked against maybe any other team. If you pick Florida to win, you look at Tampa and say, well, I'd probably take Tampa over Toronto. I'd take them over Ottawa. I'd take them over Montreal. I'd take them over Carolina. I'd take them over New Jersey. Probably take them over Washington. It's kind of a tough matchup, 2 very experienced teams. And I just think Tampa Bay's rest is going to be the difference this time. And the injury to Tkachuk. I just think that now he'll probably be a gamer. I don't think he'll come back and just play a bit, but you're right. The uncertainty, even if he misses a game, Frank, that might be the difference, right? They might lose in 7 now because they didn't have Ekblad and Tkachuk for a game.
Yeah. I could totally see it. I feel like we haven't gotten a true read on what the Panthers could be yet by nature of all these injuries and the suspension.
No, that's valid. And I'm not
why I'm
downplaying
saying
Florida.
I'm not ready to overlook Florida yet.
Yeah, no, I'm not overlooking them. You have to pick somebody, and I like Tampa, mainly because of the injuries and the health and everything else. So it's tough, though.
It's funny. Florida feels like a legit wild card.
Oh,
I could see them Tampa beating up on them, and I could see them romping Tampa at the same time.
Oh yeah, no, like their style has been proven to be successful. How they play, they know how to win. Like that's why, man, this series is like I'd be very surprised if it's kind of lopsided in any way. I'd be stunned. So
it's a great travel series, not just because it's Florida, but driving Alligator Alley. There's nothing like being in your car for a playoff series. So good.
No, that'll be a good one. And then you've got Toronto, Ottawa. First time for the Sens in the playoffs since 2017. Toronto has I wouldn't say led wire to wire, but they've been very consistent all season long in the regular season. I know that everybody's like, hey, it's about the playoffs, and I get it. They're 11th in goals against in the league. They're 8th in goals for. They're close to top 10 in both categories, so they're good. There's still the concern, Frank, like when you look at goaltending, who do you give the advantage to in this series, Ottawa or Toronto?
If Linus Ullmark is healthy, I give it to Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be a legit question.
Fair point.
It's not necessarily is he healthy, but how long will he be healthy for?
Yeah, like is he healthy enough to play 7 games is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that said, I mean, this is the best that the Leafs probably could feel about their goaltending over the last handful of playoff runs heading into one. But the way the last 40 games or so or 50 games have played out, it's not really the same kind of feeling that they had to start the year, is it?
Yeah, there's going to be, I think, probably some questions around Toronto just because of the past, and I understand it all. And to me, as much as they might focus on the goaltending, to me, at the end of the day, this comes down to, can their big four produce like they have produced in the regular season? Because that hasn't happened in the playoffs. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think they can win. It's just that simple. No one should go into the playoffs thinking, well, we got to win with our goaltender and he's got to be our best guy. He's not paid to be their best player. He's never been their best player. He's not considered their best player. The Maple Leafs playoff success is mainly going to be around, can their best guys do their job offensively, which historically, if you look at the whole numbers, like they've had a good year here or there, but overall, not good enough. And that, to me, is what it comes down to. They get paid the most money, and every team's best guys are usually the reason why they win.
Okay. I mean, you said it perfectly, right? Like, that's the same. You could have played that for any of the last 3 or 4 springs.
Yeah.
Like, you could have clipped it and just replayed what you said. So, who wins?
Now, I do want to ask you something quickly before I answer that. I'm looking at Forsberg and Ullmark have been rotating games here, Frank, for the last 6 games, right? Back and forth. And really, Ullmark hasn't started more than 2 games in a row since March 20th. He did start 4 in a row, the 13th to the 20th. Considering what happened before, if you're the Ottawa Senators, do you look at this and have a plan that we're going to play Forsberg at some point in game 3 or 4? We're going to give him a start. Or no, you think you just got to run with Ullmark?
You're paying Ullmark to be the guy. You acquired him as a Vezina Trophy winner to be the guy. You're not ceding ground to Anton Forsberg just because you want to do it.
But I think
I think they've been doing that for rest. That's my guess, is that you don't want to overtax your starter heading into the postseason when you know that you're very likely to make it. Yeah. They had a cushion over these last 6 to 7 games that the odds and numbers, it clearly indicated they would be a playoff team.
Yeah. Because he had a stretch there, obviously in March, where I think he started something like from late coming out of the, I think he started like 12 out of 14 or something, and he got through it. But I wonder if teams at some point, if you plan all year long and your guys, he's never starting more than 3 games in a row all year. Now, Ullmark has, so he's different. But there's lots of teams who have done this, where their starter hasn't played more than 4 in a row. I'm like, why would you suddenly say, well, now he's going to start 20 in a row? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Your starter used to play 70 games, so I get it.
I know.
But now I'm with you.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So I will take the Leafs, though, against Ottawa. I think, like Brady Tkachuk's health, we talked about his brother, Matthew. I think Brady Tkachuk is the emotional engine of the Senators, no question. And if he's not 100%, that's not good.
You're right. I'm going to go with the Sens. I'm going to take the Sens in an upset, and I'm not doing it just to do it.
Okay.
I really like these two teams are 10 points apart. The Sens swept the season series, and the Leafs scored a grand total of 3 goals in the 3 games that they played them.
Yeah, it was 9-3 goals for against. In those
there has to be something to that. And for a team that clenches up and struggles to score when you get to the postseason, I think Ottawa, with the makeup of their team, this is going to sound funny to say, but think about what we just said about the Panthers and their style of play. Yeah. I think their makeup is better suited to being a playoff team than a regular season team.
Maybe my one concern about the Sens, Frank, is they don't score a ton 5-on-5. So that's my concern, is in the playoffs, are they going to be able to score 5-on-5?
Yeah, I get it. But I don't think there's as much separating these teams as the numbers would indicate. Like, I know the Leafs have scored 30 more goals. The goal differential is 20 some different between these two teams. I think
it's actually 47. Toronto's plus 30 at 5-on-5 and Ottawa's minus 17 5-on-5. So 5-on-5, it's actually a 47 goal differential, funny enough. But overall, you're right, because the Sens power play has been great.
So I'm gonna take the Sens.
Taking the Sens. Well, I just love the fact that we have 2 big rivals. Like, if you're a Sens fan, you finally get back in the playoffs, you're fired up, and then you're going up against Toronto. And hey, Toronto for years, when they met in the playoffs head-to-head in the early 2000s, they won, right? And so Leaf fans are probably like, hey, we're taking on little brother again. We're going to beat him. And to me, this is just going to restoke the embers of that rivalry, which should be great. Because I don't think this is a one-hit wonder for Ottawa. I think this is now a team that's going to be a playoff contender for a while.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's closer than a lot of people. And I think what the Leafs, the pressure that they have on them to win, and the history that we've seen in their inability to do it. It's not to tie in the Masters, but like, you saw the way Rory McIlroy wobbled on Sunday before finally getting through. I mean, missing the putts that he did for eagle, then for to win it on 18, like, it's real. And the longer it goes on for Rory, 11 years, 11 chances to win, to complete the career Grand Slam, the Leafs have had a similar, it's not length of run, but as much heartbreak, with arguably more eyeballs on them to do it. I guess here's the thing, and I've said this before, that the Leafs are, I think this year, are as well positioned as they've been at any point. I think their defense core is better than it's been at any point during this run. And I think the way that they're coached is better suited for playoff success than it's been. But I don't know that any of those things matter if your north of point per game players don't find a way to produce. And by the way, this has been an extremely average season for Austin Matthews. What do we have to point to for someone like Matthews to say, hey, he's suddenly going to come alive in the postseason, and after a 31 goal, 44 assists, 75-point regular season, what do we have to point to say, oh, he's going to just turn on the Jets in the postseason and he's going to explode? That threat doesn't exist like it existed before. And they don't have the playoff success to lean on and rely on. And not only that, there was so much talk heading in about the Leafs must win the division, got to avoid Florida or Tampa in round 1. Okay, they've done that. But your treat now is, well, the Sens are only 4 points back of the teams that you just tried to avoid.
Oh yeah, no. Hey, there's no easy rounds in the playoffs, nor should there be. But to the Rory thing, he wobbled, but he ended up getting it done. And I think Toronto's going to find a way to get out of the first round against the Sens, and then they'll probably exhale. But I'm more curious about some of the individuals, and are the big 4 going to show up? Like, Nylander's had a great regular season. John Tavares has been unreal in the regular season. Can it continue in the playoffs? Austin Matthews, can he show up? Mitch Marner, So that's, to me, that's who I'll be watching in that series. As much as it's a team game, your leader's got to lead. And I do think they'll get it done in the first round. We'll get to the Metro after buy or sell with Tyler Yaremchuk. Ty, how you doing?
What's going on, boys? Ready to roll with a new edition of Buy or Sell. It's brought to you by Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner and every suspenseful moment in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app. Use the code NATION to get in on the game. Let me throw you this one. You were just talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's been a lot of talk over the last sort of 7 to 10 days about Matthew Knies and his next contract. So it's actually fill in the blank today. Matthew Knies' AAV next year will be blank, Frank. 29 goals. That's almost Austin Matthews production.
Stop it.
Ah.
So Matt Knies, 29 goals, 26 assists for 55 points. He had a full NHL season the year prior as a 21-year-old. He had 15 goals and 35 points. So he doubled his production. And then I think what you probably try and look toward is Wyatt Johnson as a comparable, who has 2 consecutive years of 32 goals per season, 65 and 70 points. So obviously at a way higher level than Austin Matthews, and Wyatt Johnson is getting that in a tax-free state. His deal is 5 times 8.4. So I'm doing this in real time. I didn't know the question ahead of time. I'm going to guess that Matt Knies' next deal is something like an AAV in the 6s, low 6s.
I think that makes sense. The center to winger comparison there too is obviously a factor. Greg's?
Cap's going up. I think Knies will capitalize. I'm going to say he's going to get 7.2.
How many years though are you buying to get that?
I think he'll go
because he's an RFA for most of those years, and Johnson is too, but they do buy at least 1 year of free agency.
I think it's going to be a shorter term though for Knies. So I'm going to say 5 years. I know Toronto would like to, because if they go longer, then the AV is going to probably have to be in the 8s.
Yeah, interesting. I'll get to the playoff conversation in just a second, but let me ask you this one. Out of the non-playoff teams in the East, the team that will look the most different next fall is blank. And this can be an all-encompassing thing. We can include front office, coaching staff, roster, but what team is going to look the most different next fall, Greggs?
It's a fascinating question. I'm going to go with the Sabres. Because I think they've got to make some changes to that team. Like and I know they had a little bit of a run here down the stretch, but it's a whole lot of nothing at the end of the day. They're not really contending. It's not like they're Columbus where they're 3 points out and they mathematically are still alive, right? They've been out of it for a long time. And so, they had their run. They went 10-3. All they did is pass Philadelphia and Boston. That's all it really did for them. It did nothing else. So I'm going to say the Buffalo Sabres because I think significant changes, Frank's talked about Peterka for a while. You look at management, coaches. I'm going to say Buffalo.
Any team, not just East?
No,
just
East only. I'll do West on Thursday. There's a little look ahead.
It's hard to go against Buffalo. I'll say the Penguins then. I think if they have any chance of rebooting and trying to be better while Sidney Crosby's under contract, they're only going to get so many opportunities to do it. I don't know how they make it work with the contracts they have, but if we're the other candidate, I think would be the Rangers.
Yeah, I thought the Rangers were going to be the kind of go or the number one answer here. I'm just looking at that going, okay, if the coaching change is a lock, if they're moving out some veterans, like who knows what they look like in a few months. All right, boys, last one. Bet365 does have odds up for the one Eastern series that is officially confirmed, and that is the Devils and Hurricanes. So let me ask you guys, The New Jersey Devils have a blank % chance of pulling off an upset. Frank?
10?
Ooh. Lower than the books, but Greg's, what do you think?
I mean, I knew it would be lower than the books, but I'm struggling, and we'll talk about it in depth. I'm struggling to find a path for the Devils to win.
Yeah, I'm with you. But we've always seen upsets, so there's got to be some. There's always one, it would seem. But I'll go with 18 just for a fun number.
A little bit.
What do the odds give him? 26?
Yeah, so it's plus 210, which flipped into percentage is 32.26% chance from Bet365. So the Canes are minus 260 favorites on the other side of that coin. One of my favorite props. I'll give you guys this one before I go. But the most goals scored in the series. What player do you think scores the most in that best of 7? Got a guess right off the jump, either of you?
Now, is Svechnikov healthy? That's the only wild card in that series, man, because they are very that's Frank, when you said if there's one thing you look for, Carolina is very different without him. If Svechnikov's playing, he's my easy pick. If he's not, then the Devils got their chances increase significantly for me.
Trying to find, Timo Meier? I don't know.
Yeah, playing for mine. The odds have Aho listed as the favorite. Actually, him and Seth Jarvis are tied for that top spot. Then it goes Hischier, Meyer, then Taylor Hall, then Svechnikov's actually 12-1, Greg's. If he plays, and like you said, if he's healthy, that might actually be the value play is Svechnikov at 12-1.
Sure.
But
Jarvis, back-to-back 30-goal seasons, probably the pick.
Yeah. Plus 500 is actually pretty decent juice as well. All right, boys, that is a wrap on Fill in the Blank. It is brought to you by not just Bet365, but also our playoff coverage at dailyfaceoff.com. Live updates, expert analysis, everything you need to know about the action on and off the ice. So make sure you're following us on social media. Find our wide range of live shows over on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And if you're ready to rep your team in style, we got a bunch of fresh playoff merch over at nationgear.ca.
Let's get to the Metro division, and we'll start with New Jersey and Carolina. And the Svechnikov injury, Frank, I definitely think is, to me, the big story. Now, obviously, Jack Hughes is out for New Jersey, so Devil fans are like, what are you talking about? Obviously, but we know he's out. Svechnikov, there's a chance he could play. Hughes has no chance. And that honestly is why it's hard for me to pick New Jersey. You take away, your best offensive player in any series, it's hard for a team to win. And to me, that's the concern here for the Devils is they are good defensively though, Frank, 4th best in the NHL in goals against, right? So I see this kind of as a low scoring series, but their offense in the East, only Ottawa scored less. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the absence of Jack Hughes.
Yeah, but what about Dougie Hamilton? That looms large. You said Jack Hughes, best offensive player for the New Jersey Devils. I would cast some shadow on that.
You're going to say Bratt?
Yes.
Yeah, I like Jesper Bratt. He's a very good player, yeah.
Yep. Look, we're talking about a team that has played pretty much putrid hockey since the calendar turned to 2025.
Yeah.
Since January 1st, the New Jersey Devils are 27th best team in the league. They're under a 500 points percentage, .475. They're 17, 19, and 4. They're grouped with a bunch of teams like they have the same exact points percentage, the same exact number of points since January 1st as the Flyers.
Yeah.
They're behind the Kraken, the Penguins, the Ducks. They're 7 points back of the Sabres, 9 points back of the Islanders. They've played horrible hockey for a very long period of time.
Yep.
I think this series has a chance to be a sweep.
Ooh, a sweep.
I would say that the Carolina Hurricanes have an authentic opportunity to sweep this series and make short work of it.
If I was ranking all 4 series in the East, this would be the one that I would rank. I'm most confident in who I think is going to win, being Carolina.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So,
and I don't think Carolina's a perfect team by any stretch.
No,
but
no, not at all.
But at the same token, like they've played really actually quite well since trading away Mikko Rantanen. Since deadline day, the Carolina Hurricanes are 10-6-1. They've been fine. If we're going by points percentage, they are 10th in the league. Again, not a perfect team, but a fine team.
Well, yeah, you're right. Carolina is far from a perfect team. I just think they got, I don't know if there's a perfect matchup, but they got the most favorable matchup, I believe, in the Eastern Conference right now. And you know what? Hey, good for them. They put themselves in that spot because of their division, and we'll see how they play. But New Jersey, you mentioned Dougie Hamilton as well, Frank. That's obviously a major question mark. And now the one thing is, Markstrom, can he steal a game or two, right? Like the Devils don't give up a ton. So that's maybe, the only option. But Carolina is still a top 10 scoring team in the NHL. So, you know what? It's hard to consistently slow them down.
Not for nothing is Markstrom even the game one starter.
Oh, you think it'll be Jake Allen?
I mean, Jake Allen's numbers are better.
Yeah, I just, how it comes down to. They're going to, the big guy who's playing the most money, but you're right. You could see both, though. That's probably fair.
Okay, so the same period of time, let's go January 1st to now. Jacob Markstrom, 21 games, 884.
Yeah.
Not good.
No.
So if you're asking me, can he steal a game? My answer is not the way he's been playing. Same period of time since January 1st, Jake Allen, 18 games, 916. 21 games, 18 games. I know who my game one starter would be, and it's not Jacob Markstrom. That's a 40 basis point differential in save percentage between Allen and Markstrom in the same period of time.
Now, what if you go just from like the last, since March 1st? Is it much difference if I go March 1st? No, it's still not different. It's 869 to 922.
Yeah, it's even worse.
Yeah.
I know who my game one starter is.
Well, but it's funny. Over the last 10 games, it's kind of reverse. Markstrom is better, and Jake Allen is 0-3. Hasn't won any of his starts. He's got an 857 and allowed 10 goals, where Markstrom's got a not much better, an 898. But that's an interesting one on Markstrom's numbers overall. But in April, his starts outside of the Boston start have actually been pretty solid. But they haven't played I was looking at New Jersey's schedule, Frank. Like their last 7-8 games have all been against non-playoff teams. So I don't even know what you put into that, right? Like they're playing Boston, they're playing the Rangers, Pittsburgh, like teams who aren't even close. So,
by the way, if I were to ask you which goalie has played more playoff games, Jake Allen or Jacob Markstrom, what would your answer be?
I think it's Jake Allen.
Jake Allen has 2 more playoff appearances than Jacob Markstrom.
Yeah, Markstrom hasn't played a ton in the playoffs, and then when he was there, it wasn't great. Like when he was I still remember the Edmonton Calgary series of 22, and he got lit up. So it could be honest, we might see a split here for sure.
They're not the only one though that I think is in question.
Well, Carolina, we always talk goaltending Carolina. How many games Freddie Anderson going to play?
Right. No, totally fair question to ask. But if you were to look at the Colorado Avalanche, for instance, I think everyone would say, oh yeah, super easy answer. Mackenzie Blackwood, he's your game one starter. I don't know that he's earned it. I really don't.
Now, hey, quickly, I looked up Carolina. We'll stick on that. In their last 12 starts, Frank, Kochetkov has an 830 save percentage and a 406 goals against, and Anderson has an 885 and a 290 save percentage. Mm-hmm. I still think it's going to be Anderson, but they've been leaking goals here lately in Carolina quite a bit, right? 41 goals allowed in their last 12 games, just from their goalies. I'm not including empty net goals. That's 41 with a goalie in net over their last 12 games. So, who knows? Maybe neither one of these teams is. It's like, well, you know what? Who wants to win the series?
I know that Carolina doesn't believe in it in terms of spending big on their goaltending, either by acquisition cost or salary cap. I feel like this is one year that could do them in. I don't know that they've been undone by their goaltending at any point over the last handful of years. I really don't think they have. But this is one year that it might catch up to them. And I don't think they're alone. I would put Edmonton in that category. And I'm real curious about the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Wedgwood's played great down the stretch. There's no question about it.
But why I'm still, help me understand why they decided that they needed to give Mackenzie Blackwood 5 years. Guy was on the scrap heap 18 months ago. In what world was he demanding or getting 5 years? I don't get it. I know the cap's going up. I still don't understand the leap of faith, but whatever.
Now let's get to Washington. We know is in. They've won the East. Montreal is not officially in, but there'd have to be a lot of bad things happen for the Canadiens not to get in. Columbus can get to 89 points. I guess they could max out if they win both in regulation with 30 regulation wins, and then if the Canadiens obviously don't win or they get a point, then Columbus would be in. But the Canadiens really, if they win one of their final 2 games or Columbus only gets a point in one of their final 2, they're going to be in.
Full marks to the Blue Jackets, by the way. Winning 4 in a row, backs up against the wall. All year long, this team has never stopped fighting.
Dude, if there was a team that you cheer for that you weren't a fan of, how could you not? Now, the Canadiens, they got the Blackhawks tonight, right? So they got a really good chance to punch. Like, if they lose tonight, Frank, they don't. You can make the argument they don't deserve to get in, because if you can't beat the Blackhawks, when you got a must-win game, what are you doing? And then the Blue Jackets have the Flyers tomorrow. That's a game they should win, but by then it probably won't matter. So I really think tonight Montreal is going to punch their ticket. There's no reason not to. The way they played lately, but you got to beat the teams that you should beat, like Calgary did last night to San Jose. It was a 2-2 game until the third period. Then they took over, scored 3 goals, won the game. And Chicago's not a very good team, and doesn't mean you 100% can win, but man, if you're the Habs, like they should punch their ticket tonight, don't you think?
Yeah, they should. But they've squandered a couple games here, to your point, that they should have won. Like the night the day after the Flyers made their coaching change, like they should have won that game against Philly. They would have already been in by that point. Look, I really like, that said, what the Montreal Canadiens have going for them. They've been a pretty hot team the last number of weeks. They've got an energy to them. Their city's on fire in a good way. Their fan base is super excited for this opportunity. That place is going to be mayhem for round 1. This Canadiens team on the back end of a rebuild. Every spring it used to be, hey, what are your travel plans? Going to Montreal. You just go, because they're always in. And being starved of that action the last few years, and I'm not going to count the COVID year and the bubble, but they're ready for it. And I just wonder, in the end, we know that Washington's going to have a huge advantage heading into this series. And I'm certainly not going to go out on a limb and predict an upset. But I wonder, with all the success that Washington has had and the exhale that comes after the Alex Ovechkin record chase, I really wonder how good top to bottom this Capitals team is.
Yeah, it's hard to get a read. They haven't had much to play for here in a while, and I know they had the big loss against Columbus, and some people are like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, yeah, I don't put much stock in a late season losses. We got nothing to play for. Especially against a team that was dying for a win. The Caps, to me, when I look at matchups, Frank, in this series, and I see the Capitals. Now, the concern for me in Washington is the health of their goaltender in Logan Thompson. And is he going to be ready? Because they've now gone, I think, 11 or 12 games straight where they've allowed 3 goals or more. So that's not ideal for them defensively. Montreal can score. But when I just look at it as a series, and now you get into a matchup, I actually think this is a real tough matchup for Montreal, because Washington's such a big, heavy team in the style that they play. I just think they're going to wear down Montreal.
I think that's right. I think the biggest question marks about this Montreal Canadiens team is their ability to defend.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be problematic going up against a Washington team that's scored kind of at ease this year.
Well, how about this, Frank? Because this is the map. Montreal is 23rd in the NHL in 5-on-5 goals against. Washington is second in 5-on-5 goals for. So you got a huge mismatch there, and the majority of the game is played there, and that's why I'm taking the Caps in this series.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Caps in 6. I think Montreal finds a way to get on the board. I think they find a way to make it interesting, but I'm going to go with Washington.
Okay, I have the Caps. Actually, I have them in 5. I think it's the shortest one for me. But Montreal and Canadian fans, you should be pumped that your team had the stretch drive that they had. They got in the playoffs, so get some experience. They got a lot of arrows pointing up for their group, and I think the playoffs are going to show management, okay, we're going to have to add a few different elements to our team. Mainly, you've got to get they got to improve their back end. I don't.
They've got that on the way though.
Yeah,
they've got pieces coming.
Yeah, but on the way, I think is a real risk. Ask the Devils. Everybody thought the Devils, too much youth on the back end rarely leads to success. I would look at Montreal at moving one of those young defenders, because obviously they're not moving Hudson. They got a few other guys, but I'd move one of them to get a good veteran defenseman. That's what I would be doing if I was Montreal, because that's what I think they're going to need going forward. Because if you're going to wait for all of your young D-men, you're going to be waiting a few years, and I don't know if that's going to be realistic. It's hard to bring all the young guys in together, especially on the back end. New Jersey's proven it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I don't know that they'll go down that path, but you definitely need some veteran presence.
What about Demidov? What's your expectations?
It's pretty high. Like, in talking to people that have watched him really closely, they all say that they wouldn't be surprised if he hits the ground running and is productive right off the hop and looks really good. So I'm going to say he has a minimum of 3 points in his first ever Stanley Cup playoff series.
Well, you know what? And I think people got, like, if you get 3 points in a 5 or 6 game series, it's pretty good, right? Like, It's not, I always like to remind people, Connor McDavid's first year in the playoffs, he had 9 points in 16 games. Like, and that was after scoring 100 points. Like, the playoffs are a hard time to produce. And we've outlined lots of key guys. First year in the playoffs for lots of players. I don't care what your age is, that first time around, it can be difficult.
Okay, so let's just run through the 4 series quickly again for posterity's sake. I've got Washington in 6, Carolina in 4, Ottawa in 6, and Florida in 7.
Ooh, okay. I have Tampa Bay in 6. I have the Leafs in 6. I have Carolina in 5, and Washington also in 5.
So total disagreement on one side of the bracket and total agreement on the other.
Yeah, we are on the opposite ends when it comes to the Atlantic Division. So should be fun, man. Can't wait. This week to see, as they get set up, and we, a lot of the series look like they're going to be what we think they're going to be. There's obviously still the uncertainty for the final spot. The 2 wildcard spots, Minnesota and St. Louis, are battling one another. And I guess let's finish with that, because obviously the Flames got to win their games, but they're going to need a little bit of help. And we won't know that until tomorrow night, because that's the night. That's the last game of the year for both the Wild and the Blues. The Wild have Utah. The Blues are hosting Utah. The Wild are hosting the Ducks. The Flames are hosting the Golden Knights. And those games in St. Louis and Minnesota start an hour earlier. So the Flames probably by the second intermission will know, what's up. And maybe someone tells them. I'm sure someone would probably tell them, win or lose, depending on how the game's going. But, Vegas in a weird way does have a say in who they'll play, technically, by beating or losing Calgary.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that the Flames are going to win both their games. So my prediction is, if one of St. Louis or Minnesota doesn't win and opens up the door, that Calgary bursts through it.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Just that third period in Vancouver and the celebration by Foligno. I think the Wild will get it done on home ice against the Ducks. The Blues, Utah's been a pretty scrappy team here, and they're close. And you know how it is, Frank. Like, for Utah, you could approach this as a playoff game. You can't make the playoffs, but man, you could kick a team out of the playoffs. That's the game, I think. Like Anaheim, I don't think so, but Utah beating St. Louis, I think there's some legitimacy to that.
Yeah, but the Blues won all those games in a row.
Yeah.
And they've lost 3 straight.
Yeah.
What if they go into the playoffs losing 4 straight?
Yeah.
Does the
now, and then the other thing is if
or what?
Like if you get into tiebreakers, so let's say St. Louis, you know, if they win, they're automatically in. The Flames can't. Well, no, if the Blues win in any
They have
form,
to win in regulation.
Well, but then Calgary has to win both their games in regulation.
I'm saying I believe Calgary's going to win both their games. I don't know why. I'm
in regulation though, right? Because that's where
someone's got to open the door.
Yeah, because St. Louis has 31 regulation wins. Calgary has 30. So if the Flames win both their games, they'd have 32. St. Louis wins theirs, they would have 32. But then St. Louis would then have the next tiebreaker because they have more regulation / overtime wins, which is the second one. So, but yeah, I guess if you think Calgary's going to win both their games in regulation, then yes, the Blues, if they win in regulation, then they're guaranteed in. So,
someone going to open the door for Calgary?
I don't think so. No. I think both the Blues, you mentioned that 3-game losing streak. I think the Robert Thomas line has a big game against Utah. That's what I prediction. He's been unreal since 4 Nations. So I'll say Robert Thomas has a big game on Tuesday for the Blues.
Okay.
It's a good pod. We'll talk about the West on Thursday. We would assume it'll be set, although depending on LA Calgary game, depending on what happens at LA Edmonton tonight, there is a chance that the Kings would need to win to ensure they get home ice advantage. We know they're playing the Oilers for the 4th year in a row. Colorado's playing Dallas. Winnipeg doesn't officially know who they're taking on, nor does Vegas, just based on the wild card. But I could see Vegas and Minnesota. Whew, that would be a slobber knocker of a series. I like it. So
it's gonna. We'll know. We should know by Thursday morning.
Yeah, you would hope.
Next time we record.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the final week of the regular season. Get your playoff picks in.
Get your NHL awards votes in, too.
Oh, yeah. That comes up. It's got to be in by Friday. So,
yeah. Get working.
Some really interesting races. Maybe we'll touch on that on Thursday as well. On behalf of Frank Cervalli, Tyler Remchuk, I'm Jason Gregor. That's the rundown brought to you by Bet365. Have a great day.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Cervalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.